Life was a struggle, a financial struggle for my parents. My father drove a truck. My mother took a job in a food factory so that I could attend a private Catholic high school. And it was a great sacrifice because she hosed down cucumbers and she would stand in a pool of water all day long. When I was younger, I wanted to be a poet. My first job was the copy girl at the Jersey Journal in Jersey City. They finally let me be a reporter one summer. I remember that I was the only reporter in the newsroom when news about a murder broke, and they sent me out to do the story. And somehow I did a pretty good job on the story because the next morning when I came into the newsroom, all the older reporters applauded me, and that was a real rush. When I graduated from college, I began to apply to newspapers from the top down. So naturally, I applied to the Washington Post. It was a pretty heady thing for a 21-year-old to go to work at the Washington Post. And I remember I used to stand in the mirror and practice saying, "This is Judy Valente from the Washington Post." I eventually left the Washington Post because I felt that I was spiritually dead after a while at the Post, and I just felt as though I had no personal life. I decided that the solution lay in getting a job at an even bigger newspaper, and so I went to the Wall Street Journal. The Journal wanted to reward me with a foreign assignment, and the plum position, of course, as a foreign correspondent at that time was to go to the London bureau. It was the loneliest period of my life. I began to realize again that it was my spirit that was sick, and I didn't know how to get out of it. I would have never had the courage to leave the Wall Street Journal on my own. One morning I walked into the London bureau, and the bureau chief called me into his office, and he said, "I have very bad news for you. The Journal is having layoffs, and you're being laid off." And I remember sitting there thinking, it took me 15 years to build my career, and 15 seconds for it to all come crashing down. When I had gotten back home, I was just walking in a street, and what came into my head was a line from a Mary Oliver poem, a wonderful poem called "The Summer Day," where she says, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And at that moment, I knew that somehow God's love and God's grace would be enough. And so I chose a new path. I didn't know if I could write poetry, but when you're really following your dreams, these people will appear in your life. I met my husband at a poetry reading, and it was really a stunning thing to meet someone at that point in my life. There's a passage in Scripture that I really like a lot where it says, "Everything has its time. It will not be one day late." I just think that eventually what God has in mind for all of us is what we truly need in life.